Ex-wife revealed, hidden billionaire success shocks ex-husband after fiancée's ring flaunted. Jake stood near the back of the crowded community center, the familiar scent of fried chicken and wilted flowers filling the air. The annual town gala usually brought a sense of nostalgia, but tonight was different. He could feel the pulse of excitement in the room. And then it happened, the doors swung open, and there she was, Emily. Dressed in a shimmering red designer gown, she stepped in like a comet shooting through the mundane suburb he called home. The gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd, igniting the air like fireworks. Her diamond ring sparkled under the dull lights, a beacon of wealth he'd never imagined would touch their ordinary lives. Jake's heart raced. $1 billion tech startup? How had she done it? He had spent the last decade wrenching engines, putting in late hours just to keep the lights on and their son fed. Meanwhile, she had soared into the stratosphere of success, leaving behind broken dreams and a torn family. Can you believe it? A nearby couple whispered. She's a millionaire now. The girl with the poppin' pink nails tossed a conspiratorial glance his way. I heard she's doing super well, you know, tech and all. Jake felt his breath hitch. It seemed everyone was drinking from the fountain of her success while he stood frozen in time, a mechanic in denim overalls, the man who had once held her heart. Flashbacks flooded his mind, late nights at the garage, her laughter echoing through their small, cluttered home, the feeling of excitement every time he thought about a future together. Was that even real? Did they ever have the same dreams? He couldn't help the swell of resentment rising in his chest, like bad gas in an engine. Before he could gather his thoughts, people began to waltz toward her, overwhelming the space. Some admired her newfound status, while others shot sidelong glances. Town gossip, alive and buzzing, filled the void where real connection once thrived. And then, before he could instinctively slip back into the shadows, their paths crossed in an instant, him, hands calloused from years of labor, her, adorned in elegance. Jake, she said softly. There was a tremor in her voice, an unfamiliar fragility amidst her polished exterior. It's been a long time. Yeah, it has, he replied, feeling words turn to lead in his mouth. They stood there, flanked by the crowd, sharing a confusing cocktail of emotions. The laughter from earlier faded to whispers as she met his gaze. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. I didn't know how else to come back, she confessed, a flicker of vulnerability breaking the polished facade. It's as if I climbed this mountain, but I forgot what's at the base. I chased this dream so hard, sleepless nights, sacrifices. Her voice trailed off as she wrestled with the truth of her choices. Jake watched her eyes shine with an unshed sadness, and in that moment, his anger began to melt. She wasn't just a success, she was a woman burdened by her own dreams. And maybe, just maybe, he had been too quick to judge, but just as the tension was about to shift, a blaring announcement echoed through the gala, cutting through their fragile connection, a financial crisis that could affect everyone, even Emily. The crowd held its breath, caught between hope and despair, unsure of what would happen next. Would their tumultuous past resurface, or could they find a way to navigate these shifting tides together? The question hung heavy in the air. Can two lives, once intertwined but now so disparate, merge again under such unexpected circumstances? The room buzzed ominously with speculation, an electrical current of anxiety that charged the air. Jake's heart sank deeper. The previously vibrant conversations dulled into nervous whispers. Emily's high-profile life shimmered under scrutiny like a fragile diamond. The crowd's fascination turned slightly sinister. Jake felt an impulse to protect her, to shield her from the growing unease. But what could he do? They were merely ghosts of each other's past, remnants of a life that faded away too easily. She glanced around, and their eyes locked again, a silent connection forming between them. In that moment, their shared history felt like a lifeline, fragile yet real. "Did you hear what they're saying?" she whispered, looking around as if the walls were closing in. "They think I'll lose everything I built." Jake could only manage a nod. A part of him almost reveled in the knowledge, the sweetness of karma, until he realized the pain it would cause her. The very woman who had left him, stripped of everything they once dreamed, stood vulnerable before him. How could he take joy in her downfall? "Listen," he said, his voice low and steady. "Whatever's happening, you're still you. Those people don't know the real story." As he spoke, he felt a flicker of determination within himself. She was formidable even under pressure, that spark of ambition he'd fallen in love with hadn't dimmed. Emily's lips quirked into an uncertain smile. "Thanks, Jake. I didn't expect to find a friend here tonight." The words hung between them, weighted with nostalgia and something deeper, a recognition of shared struggles and sorrows. A heartbeat of understanding pulsed silently in the crowded hall. Suddenly, their connection felt like a bridge over troubled waters, the past blending with an uncertain future. A fledgling hope stirred within Jake. What if we had a conversation about everything? Her brow furrowed slightly, as if contemplating the enormity of his suggestion. "You mean, like, where do we go from here? After all that's happened?" "Yeah, exactly that," he said. "But time's running out. If things are as bad as they say, you might need to think about more than just saving yourself." She nodded, her expression shifting to one of resolve through the veil of uncertainty. "I might need help. I thought I could do it all on my own, but..." Just then, the gala's host stepped onto the stage, his voice booming throughout the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you of the severity of the financial crisis affecting both the local economy and some of our businesses. I urge everyone to remain calm but to stay vigilant. Your community needs you now more than ever." A collection of anxious murmurs escaped, and suddenly, the room felt claustrophobic. Jake turned back to Emily. "We can't let them define our futures. This isn't just about you or me. We have to think about whoever's left." He saw a flicker of hesitation cross her face, a quick look of fear and disappointment at what might be lost. But Jake would not allow the echo of their past to create a schism tonight. "Think of our son, he needs us." Emily's gaze softened as she registered the urgency. "You're right. Our son, but where do we begin?" Just then, a loud crash interrupted their moment. Someone in the crowd had knocked over a table, sending plates flying. The noise shattered whatever connection they'd been building. All eyes turned toward the commotion as panic erupted in whispers and gasps. Jake's heart raced. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down. Everything was suddenly spiraling out of control. As people surged toward the noise, Jake took a step closer, putting a protective arm around Emily. "Let us figure this out together," he urged, but within him lingered a question: could they truly find a way forward, or was this merely the beginning of another fracture? Their eyes met again, uncertainty mixing with dawning clarity. Could they face this challenge as partners, or would their history of hurt keep tearing them apart? The anxiety in the air thickened as they contemplated their next move. And just like that, a choice lay ahead, looming ominously between them. Would they step into the chaos and face it together, or allow life to sweep them into opposing currents once more? Jake felt the pulse of the crowd as they swirled around him and Emily, an overwhelming tide of confusion and fear. The atmosphere thickened like molasses, every second stretching into eternity. The crash still echoed in his ears, but all he could focus on was the warmth of Emily's presence beside him. Their connection was fragile yet powerful, like a thread that had woven through years of distance and misunderstandings. "Let us find somewhere quiet to talk," he said, trying to stay calm despite the chaos. He gently led her away from the gathering crowd, moving towards a more secluded corner of the hall. He could see her shoulders relax slightly as they distanced themselves from prying eyes. Once they found a dimly lit alcove, Jake turned to face her, urgency etched in his features. "I know this feels completely out of hand. But we need to prioritize. We can't let this moment define us." The worry in Emily's eyes only deepened. "You don't understand, Jake. If they ruin my reputation, everything I've built in this city will come crashing down. Her voice wavered, revealing a glimmer of the vulnerability she was fighting to hide. His instinct was to reach out, to support her in that raw moment. Hey, we built our lives on the promise of better days, didn't we? We just have to remind them of that promise. Together? She asked, a flicker of hope igniting behind her guarded expression. Yes, together, he affirmed. The word felt significant between them, like an echo of the life they once shared. Noises from the gala faded into the background as they stepped closer, the rest of the world fading away. They could tackle this crisis, he believed that. But could they mend the cracks of their past in the process? Let us get back to the basics, Jake started. What have you got left? What connections can we use? Maybe we can reach out to those who still believe in you. Emily looked at him, her mind racing, piecing together what still remained in her grasp. My contacts, my social media presence. There are still a few investors who trust me, but they might pull back if they sense weakness. Then we won't show weakness, Jake replied vigorously. Craft a plan. We can reach out to them together. It's time to show everyone the real Emily. Her hesitation lingered, but behind it flickered a spark of determination. I can't just rely on the past, I have to think ahead. You mentioned our son, he deserves stability. The reminder of their child hit hard, a soft thud of reality in the midst of their swirling thoughts. Exactly. This isn't just about you. It's about him. We both owe it to him to try. Another crash resounded from the main hall, voices rising in panic again. Jake gripped Emily's shoulders, grounding her amid the chaos. Are you ready to take this leap? For a moment, she hesitated, searching his eyes for something encouragement, perhaps. Finally, she nodded, her resolve hardening. Yes. I want to let my dreams die here. As they stepped back into the noise, it felt like they were diving into the fray, plunging into the unknown. But this time, they have each other's backs. Through the din, a camera shutter clicked. Someone had captured them in that moment, two figures bracing against the storm. Emily's face twisted in alarm as she noticed. Jake, we need to be careful. That could spread like wildfire. Let them see us, he said, a newfound confidence sweeping over him. Let them know we're still standing. We have each other, and we're not backing down. As he said the words, a sense of unity washed over him, transforming their fear into purpose. The night was pregnant with possibility, each choice fraught with tension, but also with hope. What would the crowd's reaction be if they turned this moment into a declaration of resilience? But before they could fully process their next move, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd, striding towards them with an unsettling confidence. Jake's heart dropped as he recognized the face, someone who had sought to undermine Emily before. What were they doing here now? The crowd's fear felt like it shifted once again, now focused on this intruder. The stakes had never felt higher. How would they respond to this looming threat? Would they stand tall, or would the past drag them under once more? Emily's gaze darted nervously between Jake and the approaching figure. The crowd did the same, whispers bubbling beneath the surface like a tense undercurrent. It was Natalie, a name that once seemed benign, but now held an edge sharper than a knife. She wore a smirk that made Jake's blood run cold. Look who it is, Natalie said, her voice dripping with condescension. The dynamic duo, trying to pull together a last-minute rescue. Jake clenched his fists. What do you want, Natalie? Natalie stepped into the dim light, her designer dress shimmering with every calculated movement. Oh, just wanted to see how the real show was shaping up. I must say, it's quite a disaster. Emily straightened, stepping closer to Jake. This isn't your concern. You don't belong here. On the contrary, Natalie replied, feigning innocence. I'm the one who's concerned for your precious reputation. Or perhaps you forgot all about it during your little reunion? Stop right there, Jake interjected, his voice low and steady despite the chaos swirling behind them. Leave her alone. You're just trying to stir up trouble. With a flick of her hair, Natalie glanced around the crowd. The spectator pulse quickened, every eye glued to the confrontation unfolding in front of them. Is that so? You were always the knight in shining armor, weren't you, Jake? But let us not pretend you're going to save the day this time. Emily's already seen how easily you both fall apart. Enough. Emily shouted, her voice cutting through the murmurs. I'm done playing games. You've tried to drag my name through the mud too many times, and I'm not going to let you do it again. Natalie laughed, a sound filled with mockery. Is that so? A bold stance for someone standing on the edge of ruin. Do you even hear yourself? The doubts of the crowd began to echo in Jake's mind. He felt the weight of their stares, could almost sense the questions hanging in the air. Was Emily really going to be able to pull through? But then he turned to Emily, her fierce determination lighting a fire in his chest. Just remember, Natalie, he said, his voice steady and resolute, the more you push us, the stronger we become. At that, Natalie's smile faltered just for a moment before she shot back. You think strength is enough? Just wait until the whole city finds out about your past. That will truly be the end of you both. Let them, Emily said defiantly, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. I'm not afraid anymore. Together, we'll show them who we really are. The sirens of chaos continued outside, but inside their small cocoon of confrontation, something shifted. The energy around them vibrated with possibility, hope weaving its way into their shared resolve. Natalie's eyes narrowed, but as she opened her mouth to speak again, Emily interrupted. You don't get to dictate our story anymore. We're taking control. That declaration sent ripples of energy through the crowd. People began to murmur, the tide shifting subtly towards something like support for Emily. But just as the atmosphere began to change, a blast of phone notifications erupted from across the hall. Instagram, Twitter news was spreading like wildfire. Someone had just posted the photo of Emily and Jake face to face, fierce and defiant. Look at that, Natalie smirked, her expression triumphant as she pointed toward a screen. Seems the world loves a good spectacle. Let us hope your son enjoys the fallout. Jake's heart sank, realization hitting harder than the crashing sounds from earlier. The post wasn't just a snapshot, it could become an anchor dragging them back. At that moment, with lives hanging in the balance, Jake knew they were at a crossroads. Would they be swallowed by the past or rise above it, stronger than ever? Stay close, Emily whispered, steeling herself. We have to get to my contacts now. But before they could make a move, the crowd's focus shifted again, a low gasp rippling through them. Something or someone had emerged from the entrance, silencing the hall with sheer presence. Emily's words fell silent as she realized who was entering. The last person she expected her mentor, the very one she thought she could count on for support. Instead, it could mean betrayal. How would they navigate this unexpected twist? The answer could change everything. The crowd stood frozen, anticipation crackling in the air like electricity. Emily's heart raced, her pulse echoing in her ears. There, at the entrance, was Linda, her former mentor, the person she had looked up to more than anyone else. Emily felt a mix of disbelief and dread. Linda had been the guiding force in her career, but now, under these circumstances, she felt like a stranger walking in with a hidden agenda. Linda, Emily gasped, barely able to get the word out. The name felt foreign on her tongue. Linda walked toward them with confidence, her dark hair perfectly styled and her tailored suit accentuating every strong line of her figure. For a moment, she looked the same, but there was something in her eyes, a glint of something Evelyn couldn't quite decipher. Emily, Linda replied, her voice steady and authoritative. I didn't expect to find you here, tangled up in this mess. Jake's presence beside Emily was a shield. What is this about? Are you here to support her or betray her like everyone else? Linda waved her hand dismissively. Let us not make this about sides. I came for a reason. Emily readied herself for whatever came next. What reason? You've stayed out of my life all this time. Why show up now? Linda stepped closer, her gaze sharp. Because, dear Emily, I've been watching. I know about your past, and I can assure you, it's about to get a lot worse if you don't handle this carefully. The tension in the room thickened. The crowd had shifted again, their murmurs rising like waves crashing against the shore. Emily could almost feel the eyes of the onlookers, questioning her, judging her, as if they could sense the tide turning against her. What do you mean worse? Jake's voice cut through the noise, protective yet filled with concern. What else could possibly happen? Linda smiled, an unsettling grin, and glanced toward the exit where a group of reporters had begun arriving. Cameras flashed like stars erupting in the night sky. Let us just say there are some things you haven't considered about your precious reputation. The world hasn't heard the half of it. Emily felt a hollow pit form in her stomach. What are you saying? Just spit it out. Your life, your choices, they're all about to be oversimplified for public consumption, Linda said coolly. And if you want to save yourself and your son from a media frenzy, you'll need my help. Jake shot a glance at Emily, concern etched into his features. They both knew that following Linda might mean stepping deeper into unknown waters. But the alternative silence could lead to catastrophe. I want to be a pawn in your game, Linda. Not now, not ever, Emily declared, her voice stronger this time. I've fought too hard for my independence. Linda sighed, the irritation barely masked. I'm offering you a lifeline, not a new master. But if you choose to ignore me, you might just find yourself drowning. The reality of their situation hit Emily hard. She was cornered, and Linda held the key that might unlock their path. But could she trust her? Jake took Emily's hand, squeezing it in a silent promise, a reminder they were in this together. He turned to her, eyes sparkling with conviction. Whatever happens, I'm with you. As they stood together, the crowd continued to murmur, the atmosphere alive with possibilities. Emily felt the strength swell inside her, torn between rebellion and collaboration. Could she subvert this potential betrayal into a transformative moment? Before she could weigh the options, Linda spoke again, her tone suddenly serious. If you don't act fast, Emily, you won't have control over anything, especially not your son's future. The stakes were higher than ever. Emily realized she had a choice to make, a decision that would shape everything. As the air filled with uncertainty, she felt a sudden chill sweep through the room. What would happen next wasn't just about her reputation, it was about the legacy she would leave behind. Would she seize the opportunity or risk it all? The question hung over them, lingering like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury. Emily's mind spun as the words settled over her like a heavy fog. Linda stood there, almost enjoying the chaos her presence had stirred. The flashing cameras amplifying the tension made everything feel unreal. She could see the headlines already forming in her mind. Emily's past exposed, scandals resurfaced. The thought alone made her stomach turn. Jake squeezed her hand tighter, urging her to focus. What do you want from her, Linda? He demanded again. His voice was a mix of determination and protectiveness, the kind of support Emily had always needed but had been unsure if she could find now. I want to help her, Linda insisted, though it felt more like a challenge than an offer. But Emily has to understand the stakes. She leaned in, lowering her voice as though the crowd did not exist. You'll be consumed by this if you don't take charge. You need a broader strategy to counteract whatever is coming if you want to be a real contender in this game. Emily shook her head, repelled by the idea of using Linda's tactics. I want to manipulate or beg for fame. My life isn't a game. And yet, here we are, Linda countered smoothly, glancing at the reporters who were inching closer, amplifying the pressure building in the room. You're already a headline, Emily. Just look. She gestured toward the cluster of journalists, and Emily suddenly felt like they were all turning their scrutiny on her. Fear crept back into her mind, mingling with anger. You think I'm just supposed to roll over and accept your twisted view of success? Jake's grip tightened, and Emily suddenly felt bolstered by his presence. No one defines her but her, he stated firmly. Linda chuckled lightly, but it was devoid of any warmth. You think you can afford to resist? The media will tear you apart, dig up every detail of your life. You don't have the luxury of fighting against this without a plan. With each word, the stakes rose higher in Emily's mind. The former mentor had a point, even if that made her stomach twist at the thought of partnering with someone she trusted so little. If you're genuinely here to help, what do you suggest? Emily's voice wavered, betraying the desperation within her as she sought clarity amid the chaos. Linda straightened up, her posture exuding confidence. First, we contain the narrative. Control your story before others can spin it for you. I have connections. You'll need that. It felt like a slippery slope. Collaborating with Linda meant exposing the deepest wounds of her past, but the alternative loomed worse. Her son depended on her now, more than ever. Could she risk losing not just her future but his as well? Just as the weight of her decision began to settle in, a commotion erupted at the entrance. A thick-set man burst through the crowd. Emily squinted, recognizing him as a familiar face from her past, a key player in the very situation she was trying to escape. Emily. We need to talk, now. He shouted, desperation lacing his tone. The world around her blurred. Everything she thought she understood shifted. The walls were closing in, and the moment felt like a train hurtling toward her. What? What do you want? He is coming for you, and once his team catches wind of this, he gestured toward Linda, there won't be any way out for any of us. Panic surged through her veins. She was standing on the precipice of something dark and inevitable. Jake stepped forward, protective. Who is he? Emily's heart raced as she waited for an answer. Who was this new player in her chaotic chess game? What else was at stake? The crowd erupted in noise, but all she could hear was her own heartbeat, and one persistent thought echoed: their lives would change forever in the blink of an eye. Emily, the man said again, his voice grave, drawing her back into the moment. What had she gotten herself into? Who was coming for her? She had to know now. The reality was unraveling faster than she could keep up. The storm was here. Emily felt the weight of those words pressing down on her chest. She glanced around, the buzz of confusion and urgency morphing into an overwhelming sense of impending doom. The cameras flashed like lightning, capturing every fleeting expression, and Emily's mind raced. Who was this man, and why did his presence send a chill down her spine? His name is Victor, the man said, desperation clawing at the edges of his voice. Victor Hale. He doesn't just have connections, he has power. A lot of it. He's not someone you can ignore. Jake's protective instinct kicked in again as he stood in front of Emily, eyes locked on the stranger. What do you know about him? His tone was low and threatening that Emily's heart thudded painfully against her ribs. Victor Hale. The name stirred a distant memory, foggy yet threatening. She vaguely remembered the whispers of his ruthlessness, the way he played the game of life like a game of chess, moving pieces with cold precision. He'll stop at nothing to protect what's his, the man continued, his gaze darting between the two of them. And you? He paused, looking Emily in the eye. You're the pawn he never expected to get back on the board. He'll expose everything, every skeleton you've tried so hard to bury. It's not just about your past, Emily. It's about how he can use it against anyone who crosses him. Emily felt the crowd pressing in, their judgmental stares like an army of accusations ready to advance. I can handle it, she whispered, though deep inside, she questioned that very assertion. Linda leaned closer, a glint of interest sparking in her eyes. What do you mean, he's coming for you? Does he want something specific? Panic bubbled beneath Emily's calm exterior. He's always wanted control, she murmured, grappling with the swirling emotions. He thinks he owns people's situation stories. So, he sees you as a threat? Jake pressed, anger threading through his tone. More like a loose end, Emily admitted. One he never tidied up. Before she could process her own feelings, Linda interjected, then we need to act fast. We can't let him dictate your narrative. Not now. Her voice held an urgency that began to seep into Emily's resolve. Let us flip this. Use Victor's own strategy against him. Emily stepped back, retreating from the tension in the air. I don't want any part of his games. It felt like an impossible choice, caught between battling her fate and the shadow of a man who once held her life in a vice grip. "Maybe you don't have a choice, Emily," Jake said gently. She glanced at him, finding reassurance in his fierce gaze. Being brave sometimes meant facing fears head-on, but could she find the strength to enter this battlefield? Suddenly, the thick-set man interrupted her thoughts. "If you don't confront him now, if you don't set your terms, you'll be left with nothing again." His implication hung heavy in the air, resonating deep in Emily's soul. With each passing heartbeat, a desperate resolve began to thaw the ice of her uncertainty. She had fought so hard to reclaim her life, to give her son a future. Could she really let Victor Hale take that away from her? "Fine," she whispered, steeling herself. "What's our first move?" Just then, her phone vibrated violently in her pocket. She pulled it out, the screen lighting up with an incoming message. The sender was unknown. "We need to meet. The world wants your story, and I'll give it to them." Emily's breath hitched. Suddenly, everything was spiraling again, a wild, chaotic force pulling her in multiple directions. Was this another opportunity, or a trap waiting to close around her? A cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she realized this wasn't just about her anymore. It affected Jake, her son, their future. The stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined. What would she choose? And at what cost? The next step loomed ahead like a deep, dark abyss. The storm was unfolding, and she had to decide how to navigate through it before it consumed her whole. Emily stared at her phone, her fingers shaking slightly. The message felt like a cold slap against her skin. "The world wants your story," the words echoed in her mind, twisting and turning like a serpent. "What does it say?" Jake's voice cut through her haze. He leaned closer, his worry palpable. "It's from someone I don't know," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "They want to meet to talk about my story." Jake's brow furrowed. It could be a trap. Victor might be trying to manipulate you through this person. Don't trust it. But the urgency in her chest was undeniable. She had been running, hiding for far too long. The thought of seizing control, even if just a little, was intoxicating. A whisper of defiance stirred inside her. "I have to find out who it is." "Emily." Jake began, but she cut him off, determination igniting in her eyes. "I'm tired of being scared. Tired of hiding. If this person can give me a chance to fight back." Her voice trailed off, and she met his gaze, searching for understanding. His expression softened. "I just don't want you to get hurt. You've come so far." "Then I'll be careful," she promised, her heart pounding. There was a strength in her resolve that she hadn't felt in years. "Where do you meet?" Linda asked, folding her arms, her curiosity piqued. "It says a cafe downtown." "The Green Bean," Emily answered, biting her lip. A surge of uncertainty washed over her. This could go very wrong. Jake nodded, his expression shifting from concern to protectiveness. "I'll go with you. There's no way I'm letting you do this alone." They made their way to the cafe, the atmosphere dealing in stark contrast. The lively chatter and the aroma of roasting coffee clashed with the tension brewing inside her. As they entered, Emily scanned the room. She spotted a figure in the corner, hunched over a laptop, the flickering screen illuminating a shadowy face. "Is that them?" Jake whispered, a hand resting on her shoulder. It was hard to tell. The stranger wore a black cap pulled low over their eyes. With every step, her heart raced, mingling anticipation and dread. "Stay by my side," she whispered back, channeling her inner strength. As they approached, the figure looked up. Emily's breath caught. It was a woman, perhaps in her late 30s, with sharp features and an intense gaze. She closed her laptop and gestured for them to sit. "Emily," the woman said, her voice cool and precise. "I'm Mia. I've been following your story, and there's much to discuss." Emily blinked, absorbing her words. "Why me? What do you want?" Mia leaned in, her eyes steely. "Because Victor Hale isn't just a danger to you. He's a danger to many. And your story, your truth, can bring him down. What are you implying? Jake interjected, a possessive edge in his tone. Mia held up her hand, silencing him. If you're willing to be brave, I can help you navigate this. But you have to understand the risks involved. Victor has powerful allies. Emily felt her pulse quicken, excitement dancing with fear. What do you mean? There's an audience waiting, Emily. A world that thrives on these narratives. You can turn your past into a weapon. Through Mia's words, a vision began to unfold in Emily's mind, one in which she wasn't just a pawn but a player in a larger game. She could reclaim everything. But how? She asked, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. First, you need to confront what haunts you. Then, we turn it against him, Mia replied, her voice unwavering. Trust me, there's a way through this. But you have to be willing to fight, to expose everything. Emily felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by the weight of consequence. Was she ready to face her past? As uncertainty settled in, Mia leaned closer. Remember, the only way to take back your power is to draw the first move. Are you ready for that? The question lingered in the air, heavy with consequence. Emily's heart raced. The stakes were higher than ever, but could she truly shoulder the burden of her own story? And what if Victor was already watching, waiting, ready to pounce at the slightest misstep? Each breath took her a step deeper into the unknown, and she felt her world shift beneath her feet, preparing her for a battle she never sought but may not be able to avoid. The question now hung in front of her like a looming dark cloud. Could she face Victor Hale and come out alive? Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she gazed into Mia's unwavering eyes. The cafe around them faded into a distant hum, her focus narrowing to the weight of the moment. The curse of her past swirled in her mind, a tapestry of pain, betrayal, and secrets. She had spent too long trying to forget, trying to hide, but now, the narrative was shifting. What do I need to do? Emily asked, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Mia smiled, a glint of approval sparking in her gaze. First, we need to unveil your truth to the world. That means digging deep into your past, confronting the shadows that Victor has cast over your life. But it won't be simple. Simple is the last thing I'm expecting, Emily said, her resolve hardening. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. It starts with understanding what happened, everything from the beginning, Mia replied, folding her hands together. You can't just reveal it, you have to feel it. Only then can you transform it into your weapon. Jake shifted beside Emily, concern etched on his face. What if it backfires? What if Victor retaliates? Victor will retaliate, Mia stated, her tone blunt, yet firm. He's not used to being challenged. That's what makes you a threat. But if we act strategically, if you claim your narrative, it will give you an advantage he never saw coming. A small flame ignited in Emily's chest. Fear always lurked close to the surface, but now a new feeling seeped in empowerment. What about you? How do you fit into this? Mia leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. I have information, connections that can help you build your platform. But I'll need your trust. We're in this together. You'll face the backlash, but I'll make sure you have the support to stand against it. With a determined breath, Emily nodded. Then let us do this. Mia pulled out a notepad and jotted down a few rapid notes. We have to start gathering your accounts. The days with Victor, the emotional abuse, the isolation. It's vital that we get this right. It'll take that raw energy and turn it into a story that resonates. Every recollection felt like uncovering an old scar, but Emily found the more she spoke, the lighter she felt. She hesitated at first, remembering how it felt to be voiceless, but with each detail, her voice grew stronger. As she recounted her darkest memories, she glanced at Jake. He sat quietly, holding her hand, offering unspoken support. His presence was a lifeline, reassuring her with a simple squeeze, but lurking in the back of her mind was the haunting realization of Victor. Would he be watching? planning his counterattack while she laid bare her soul. Once we have your story structured, we'll need to find a way to share it, Mia said, breaking Emily's concentration. You'll need allies, people who believe in your cause. We'll create a platform where your voice won't just be heard, but amplified. Amplified, Emily repeated, tasting the word. The idea excited her. Who do you have in mind? Activists, survivors, journalists, people who stood against their own demons. You'd be amazed at how supportive communities can be when they see someone courageous enough to speak. As Ella's vision of empowerment crystallized, her sense of history resurfaced. The forces that had bullied and beaten her down now seemed uniquely vulnerable. Perhaps Victor's power came from fear, and maybe her light could fracture the illusion, but a nagging question remained. What if the world doesn't care? What if they don't want to hear my story? Mia leaned back, her expression serious. That's the risk. But you won't know until you try. This is about more than visibility, it's about truth. People thrive on connection. Your story may resonate so deeply that it ignites a wave of resistance against Victor himself. Emily felt a powerful swell of energy inside her, a thawing of the frozen places within her heart. She could change her narrative. What's our first step? She asked, excitement bubbling to the surface. Mondays are for beginnings, Mia said, her tone fierce. We meet here again, and I want you to write down everything. Every moment that Victor took, every fear that stifled you. By the time we meet, reclaim it all. Emily nodded, her heart racing with a mix of hope and dread. This was her moment, but lurking doubts lingered, gnawing in the corners of her mind. Fear will be there, Emily, Mia added as if reading her thoughts. It will accompany you in every step. But strength grows in pushing through it. As they stood to leave, Emily felt the fiery crack of resolve deep in her bones. The narrative of her life was shifting beneath her feet, turning into something she could wield. But deeper questions loomed in her heart. Would it be enough to outsmart Victor? Was she truly ready to expose herself to the world, risking it all to reclaim her power? With every ounce of her being, she grappled with the truth that the next step might just plunge her further into a battle she didn't know she could fight. In the silence of that moment, she realized the real fight was just beginning, and she couldn't turn back now. Would she have the strength to face all that was coming her way? Emily stood at the heart of the storm, emotions swirling around like scattered leaves in the autumn wind. She took a deep breath, the air thick with anticipation and determination. The upcoming days would be like a canyon, deep, dark, and full of echoes. She couldn't turn back. Not now. The past, with all its ghosts, would need to be faced head-on. Days turned into a blur. Meetings with Mia became the compass guiding her through the tempest. Each session brought clarity, shaping her narrative, pushing her closer to the truth. It felt hauntingly cathartic to speak about Victor, to give a voice to the silence he had imposed for so long. Jake remained by her side, his unwavering support a lighthouse in rough seas. They spent late nights at the kitchen table, crafting her story into something powerful. Together, they sifted through memories, discovering beauty amidst the rubble. Emily loved the way he listened, the way he believed in her without hesitation. One late afternoon, a few days before the big reveal, Emily found herself staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back seemed different, a fierce fire burnt behind her eyes, softening the edges of fear. She ran her fingers through her hair, took a moment, and whispered to herself, "You can do this. For you. For our son." The day of the reveal dawned bright, as if the universe itself was cheering her on. The cafe buzzed with energy, the air fragrant with roasted coffee and sweet pastries. Emily's heart raced. She stood in front of a small crowd of local journalists and supporters, her son clutching tightly to her hand, radiant in his innocence, a reminder of every reason she fought so hard. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady yet quivering with emotion. "Today, I want to take a journey with you, a journey through my past." The murmurs in the cafe quieted down, anticipation thickening the air. She told them of Victor, of his cold, smothering control, each word stripped bare as she reclaimed fragments of her life. Emily admitted her own struggles, revealing scars once hidden. She felt a warmth rise like a wave within her as they began to connect with her story. Faces of understanding blossomed around her. Tears glistened in the eyes of some, empathy evident in others. Halfway through speaking, she spotted a familiar face in the audience, Linda. To her surprise, she felt a flicker of teamwork, not betrayal. As Emily continued, Linda nodded, showing solidarity, a sign that they could be united despite their past. Strength emerged in vulnerability, creating unexpected alliances. When Emily finished, a powerful silence fell. Then, a ripple of applause began, growing louder, enveloping her in an embrace of acceptance. Her eyes shone, she felt lighter, free from the shackles of old tales. Just when she thought relief would wash over her, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. A text from Mia flashed on the screen. "Victor knows. He's coming." The flood of anxiety threatened to creep in once more. But this time, she was armed with truth. Jake squeezed her hand tighter, grounding her. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together," he said softly, his eyes brimming with confidence. As the crowd erupted in support, snapping photos, cheering her on, Emily understood. This was just the beginning. Victor's looming shadow wasn't just a threat, it was fuel for her fire. She stepped down, emotions still swirling, but with clarity. It was time to reclaim her life, not just for her sake, but for her son. She turned to him, beaming. "We are stronger than our past, aren't we?" He nodded, beaming back, an innocent smile lighting up his face. Loved. Held. Whole. With a surge of determination, she walked into the future, hand in hand with Jake and her son. No longer bound by fear or the unpredictability of Victor, she felt a warm glow of possibility. They would navigate this together. Now was the moment to inspire others, perhaps even turn the tides against Victor. The stakes continued to rise, but she felt incredibly ready. The camera clicks echoed like promises as she headed toward a new horizon. And just like that, the storm turned into a breeze that pushed them forward. Hope blossomed anew. This was their story. Their fight. And they were just getting started. Emily took a deep breath. Let us change the world. Now, dear viewers, this is your moment to become part of something bigger. You need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories that push the boundaries of transformation and resilience. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm and spread optimism, because this matters. Don't wait not even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to feel that hope. Let us show our support for something profound and beautiful together. Comment below with your thoughts, reactions, and feelings about this ending. Your voices matter.